If you're looking for a new way to support Side Mission, check out Dubby.gg, an energy supplement company trying to make a difference. Make sure to use code Side Mission for 15% off your order. Thank you, Dubby, for sponsoring this episode, and we hope you enjoy.
Welcome into the newest episode of Side Mission. I, like always, am your host, Rusty Ellis, joined by just two of the boys, Kyle and Matt. And today we're talking about one of the most hyped up releases of the year, Star Wars Jedi Survivor. So, first thing worth pointing out, really interesting that this game got a sequel. Fallen Order got a sequel. Really interesting because I don't know about y'all. I thought that Fallen Order was just open-ended enough to leave room for a sequel, but I also felt that as a standalone Star Wars game, it did a good job of just kind of not sequel baiting. It didn't really leave off on a cliffhanger. You know, you end up in spoiler alert if you haven't played Fallen Order, which, by the way, phenomenal Star Wars game, one of the best Star Wars game in existence. And spoiler alert for this episode, we really loved Survivor as well, and we're going to get into that here soon. You know, Cal destroys the holocron, and it's just kind of like, all right, where do y'all want to go next? And doesn't really leave off on a cliffhanger, and just kind of wraps up the story in a neat little bow. This game, I have to say, and we'll talk about overall feel of the game before we dive into critiques here. I want to get y'all's take on this because, Kyle, we kind of alluded to it earlier when me and you were kind of talking back and forth about it. This feels almost like how Last of Us Part 2 felt to Last of Us Part 1. In that the first one, there's a little bit more pep in it. There's a little bit more energy. It's a little bit more positive and uplifting. This is a significantly darker story and a darker game than what Fallen Order was.
Most definitely. I think that they really embraced a lot more of, I think, the other sides, the other point of views. Like, we talked about so many times in this game, they mention, you know, things that happened during the Clone Wars, and how other, planets, other systems were viewing the Jedi because obviously most people only saw one side. They really didn't hold back with taking a look into, I think, some of the darker parts of the Star Wars universe. And this game itself, adding to it, I think had some dark moments in its story that really made this feel like, a true There's a lot of things I think made this game feel like a true sequel. Outside of the performance.
Yeah.
Outside of the
Yeah,
performance.
I think we'll agree. That's one of the biggest negatives, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, honestly, I gotta say, I fucking loved this game. My
Yes.
my biggest critique, I think, like everybody else's, is the performance. The game had an initial release date, and it got delayed, and we accepted it because we've seen what happens when a game comes out undercooked. Now, when a game gets delayed, I expect it to come out, running as advertised. 60 FPS, no screen tearing, not, super buggy, which, to be honest, my game didn't really have a whole lot of weird bugs and glitches. Rusty's had a pretty interesting one, though. But,
Yeah, and again, we'll get into spoilers a little bit in
yeah,
this review. So if you want to play Survivor without it being spoiled, go play it and then come back and listen to this later. We'll all understand 100%. Yeah, my
definitely.
bug was in the last Ravis boss fight where you kill him and my dude just started bugging out all over the place when I hit him. He just started like jumping all over the screen, and I was just like, "What is happening here?"
Dude, that
Like,
shit was so
I
funny.
know, Kyle. The thing that was frustrating for you was you dealt with a lot of the game crashing. The game crashed quite a bit. And it crashed your PS5 a couple times too.
Yes, it did. That has to be one of the most irritating things because there was, one boss fight that I got completely through. I was midway through the cutscene that comes after, and then it crashed, and when I loaded it back up, I had to redo that boss fight. And that was very annoying because like there should have been some kind of automatic checkpoint after I had beat him before the cutscene started. That way, when I come back, in case of something like that, I just start up at the cutscene. Because it was really annoying having to go through that. It was a long boss fight.
Yeah, Matt, did you have any crazy performance? I know obviously we all played the game on PS5, so we all kind of had roughly the same experience. I would shudder to see how this would run on my Series S. To be honest with you,
I know, right?
I would I would shudder to see how it runs on that. I really don't want to see that. Performance wise, Matt, what was kind of your takeaway? Obviously, I know that none of us are really pleased with how the game performs. When the game runs well, like when the moment it does hit 60 FPS, it looks awesome. Like you've
Yeah.
seen a really awesome looking game. Did you have anything crazy happen?
So I have two things I'd like to point out. So during the first section in Coruscant, I didn't really experiencing anything too bad. Like I didn't really get any kind of like FPS dips or anything like that, or any kind of frame stuttering. I didn't start experiencing anything weird until the first time that you arrive on Kobo and it becomes a little bit more open world.
Yeah,
I definitely noticed that the game was not. I don't even think the game was going 30 FPS for me at some points.
I agree.
I feel like it was going to like 15. But this is actually what's really funny for me. So Kylo's PlayStation 5 crashes, and you get that weird moment in that boss fight. For me, I kept running into doors not wanting to open, like no matter what I did in it. Not just the doors that just don't open from this side. By the way, that's a lot of times. But
Take
there
a
are
shot
little
every time that
moments
happens.
little moments where I'll travel on the Mantis to go to the next section, and the freaking the door to the Mantis won't open. It's just
What
closed.
the
I can't get out of the
know,
Mantis unless I
it's
reload.
funny.
Unless I go
It,
back. Unless I go back to the map, select a
yeah,
planet, a different planet, and then I have to go back to that other planet. And then sometimes it'll work, and then other times are just doors will not open, man. I will be. I'm
it's
like,
funny that you mentioned that actually, because I had that happen a couple times at the saloon. I had that
yeah,
happen a couple times there where I would sit there and maybe it was just the game having to load the areas in and maybe it was just kind of a hidden loading screen or something, but it felt like I was sitting there for like 15, 20 seconds and the door wouldn't open.
Yeah, same.
yep.
Like it was just rough.
Another thing I ran to is like sometimes Cal, like there's sections like you're supposed to be able to wall run here, or you're supposed to be able to slide down this wall. Sometimes the animation won't register, and Cal will just fall to his death.
That's my
Yeah,
favorite.
I've had that happen.
I'm
I've had that
like,
happen
I'm
too.
like, I'm like, bro, that is clearly an area where I can wall
Yeah.
run. Like, what are we doing here?
No, I'm right there with you on that. I think that the performance obviously is very rough on all points. I've noticed a couple times that, especially on Kobo, which is pretty much the biggest world that you go to in this game. All the other worlds are open as well. Whenever you go to explore them, there's things, there's rumors that you can do, there's bounties that you can chase down. There's a lot to do in this game. Kobo specifically, though, I noticed that as I spent more time in the open world, the frame rate just kept dropping. Like it didn't just drop down for a couple seconds and then go back to 30. Like it would be at 30 and then it would drop to like 25 and then few minutes later it dropped down to 20 and it would just keep dropping to a point where I'm sure I had some moments where I was down in the low teens in frames. And it's frustrating because there's a speeder bike section late in this game where it runs flawlessly at 60 FPS the entire time with no slowdowns. And there's a lot of shit going on the screen. Like, if you could make that section run at 60 FPS the entire time, why in the world could you not make the entire game run like that?
Right.
That's what's really frustrating. And for me, again, the few times the game hits 60, it looks so good that you're just like, it just teases you almost
Right.
to where you feel like you're just missing this. A small complaint that I have before I get into like the complaint that might that is going to help us kind of get into the positives. Can someone explain to me why the fuck this game is 150 gigs?
Yeah.
Why in the world is the download file that big? Like, I'm sorry, Kobo is a big open world, okay? But it is not bigger than Horizon Forbidden West's map. It is not bigger than Elden Ring's map. It's not bigger than God of War Ragnarok. It's not bigger than any of God of War Ragnarok's maps. Why in the world is this game 150 gigs? Like, all the other worlds are pretty contained. This, that's so annoying that I have 150 gigs on my PS5 hard drive or on my SSD tied up to this game. Like I can't download really any other game that I want to try to go back to play or platinum right now because of this game. And that's really annoying. So I just wanted to get that out there. That's something I wanted to bitch about just myself there for a second.
I do
Go
have
ahead,
something
Matt.
to add here. I'm pretty sure that the reason why it takes so much space is because that mullet That mullet, it takes up a
It's
lot of
the
gigs,
poncho.
man.
It's the poncho. It's the poncho. The
It's
lack
the
of poncho is why.
It's all that swag, man. Come on.
Man, it really is, man. It's the lack of the poncho, man. The fact that I still haven't found it for the trophy yet. So to
Same.
kind of get us heading in the more positive direction, the last really big, and I say really big, it's not really a big negative. It's kind of just, it's something that early on I really couldn't shake, and it really had me feeling hit or miss in this game. You both know I messaged you about this when the first game first came out. I kept saying like I don't know about this. The story gets off to a really slow start. It just gets off to a really really bad start, and Matt, you described it very accurately. It feels almost like a fan fiction. It feels very
Yeah.
very fan written, fan made. Cal Kestis, you're in the shoes of him again, and you're kind of just fighting the Empire, and there's no real end goal early on. And until you get about 2.5, 3 hours in, you really discover that end goal. It takes a few hours to get rolling. Once you have that end goal in mind, the story picks up in a big way, and the story becomes awesome. So much so that the plot twists late in the game are awesome. The fights and the set pieces are great. And then obviously, specifically, a story beat that a lot of us love is something they kind of hinted at a little bit in Fallen Order. They hint at it a lot early on in this game, and they follow through on it. And it's we'll talk about that obviously. Again, spoiler alert as we get into all the positives now. The gameplay in this game just as solid as the first game, if not better in every way, shape, and form. Kyle, you said you have something. What do you have?
Oh yeah, this is where I really wanted to talk about a game being a
A
true sequel,
sequel.
in my opinion, is when they take, you in the beginning of Fallen Order, and you feel powerless essentially. You go through this journey and you learn all of these abilities, you get all these powers, and by the end of the game, you feel really OP. And in this game, they take Cal from the ending of Fallen Order and just put him in here, and somehow with all of his abilities and even some added skills and multiple lightsaber stances from the get-go, they they find a way to make you feel powerless again and take you on this incredible journey learning more abilities, stacking on top of the stances and all of the other things. I mean, I love when a game does that and doesn't say, "Oops, you somehow forgot everything that you just got done doing in your last
You lose all your
25-hour
upgrades.
journey."
Yeah.
Yeah, like, oh
Can't
man,
hit Tears of the Kingdom.
oh man, dude, yeah, for real. And the
Hey,
Arkham
that's a red
trilogy.
herring. That's a red herring as fuck, by the way. We're all really enjoying Tears of the Kingdom, by the way. We're recording this a couple days after it's launched. They fooled us like hell, though, giving us all those hearts and all that stamina at the beginning of the game. They fooled us.
Yeah, for real.
They fooled us there. But yes, back to Jedi Survivor. I love you have the double jump, you have the wall run, you have your force push, your force pull. You have all of that back.
Yes.
You have everything back from the first game, and you feel like you're a badass, like you should, regardless of what difficulty you play on. You feel like a badass, and you learn new abilities along the way that help you. And one of those is, the ability to open doors, using the force, pushing them up or pulling them back down. You learn that ability. You can pull down, entire entire ships with it. Really, really cool stuff there. The ability to grapple. The ability to grapple is another thing they added in this game. Adding the grappling mechanic, that you've seen in so many games. I think it was added in God of War using the Blades of Chaos and Ragnarok. Very, very similar to that. That's a cool addition here. And all the customization options for the lightsaber available right out of the jump. All the colors, all except for 2 that you get in New Game Plus, with one of those being red. That's pretty badass. You have a red lightsaber in New Game Plus. But yes, Kyle, adding all the new abilities you get, this game feels like a true sequel because of that.
It really does. I think that also the focus on, I think, the traversal,
Yes.
the midair dash, the grapple, all of the different things. Like, I loved those, like the little balloon things that you could grapple to, and then if you held down L2, you could hold there in the air, and you could shoot yourself off in a completely different direction, or even right back from where you came from. it was really focused on, I think, not just in the fast travel and the way the map is laid out, I think being much easier to read. Just traversal in general feels so much better in this game than it did in Fallen Order. It feels like they really listened to a lot of our critiques about the original game and implemented them in the sequel. And I gotta say, I really appreciate that.
Yeah, 100%. Again, just having all these abilities and creating the fresh new abilities. That's the thing, man. You can tell that Respawn put a lot of effort into that. The other thing is the stances. Adding, we had the double bladed lightsaber, we had the single blade, and then we had, obviously, at some point in Fallen Order, you get the ability to split them for a combo attack. Here, you get the dual wielding, except it's completely dual wielding by itself. It's not just one attack that you press a button for and it splits the lightsaber for a second. You get that full stance. But you also get two more additional stances that are really interesting. One being the blaster stance, which is really cool, where you wield a lightsaber in one hand and a blaster in the other. And then the crossguard stance, which I was not a big fan of, but that's been one that's we're talking about. It's kind of a Kylo Ren type stance where, it's stronger attacks that are a little bit slower, that are harder to block. Again, Matt, a lot of varied gameplay. It feels like you can play a lot of different ways.
Yeah. Yep. That's one thing that this game did that pulls off being a sequel compared to the original is not just the stances that we talked about, not just the fact that you got to keep up all your abilities, but the introduction of perks, which I thought was really cool.
That too.
Kind of gives this type of an RPG type mechanic. And also, I love the way that the new skill tree works as well, where it's not just like a single board where you just keep upgrading higher and higher, but it's split off into force, split off into
lightsaber and survival,
and survival. So, which is great. So, and what it really does is it gives you like your own way to play the game because. Personally, I mean, I'm not sure what the level cap here is or how many skill points you get, but from what it's like, I don't think that you can literally have everything like upgraded. Because I also saw where you can reset your skills as well.
Yeah.
So I thought that was cool. That just gives the player more choice about which way that they want to take, their character. And it's not all the same. Like one thing that I love that they did was introducing the slam and the and the raise. Like I love raising up an enemy and then slamming them down. It is so satisfying. I love using the force pull to pull an enemy into my lightsaber. Like this, they really just like did their homework on how Jedis fight, and like they took like cues from almost every character across like the story, not just the main movies, but like the other games and other content like shows. Like they really did like improve well beyond what I pictured that this game was going to do.
And I think the addition of mounts as well. We talk about traversal. Mm-hmm. The addition of mounts is something else. Like whether it's an animal that you're going to ride around, like the Spamel that you ride on Jeddah, which Jeddah, really cool design. Love that planet. Obviously, Matt, you said something when I was in the middle, or I was close to the end of my playthrough of the story about how Jeddah was where the original, I don't know if it was Starkiller base, but it was one of the original like bases for the Empire that was helped developing the Death Star. And, we see it in Rogue One, I think, is where we see it. And obviously we know what happens to it from there.
Real quick, Jeddah was Rogue One. It was basically the home base of Saw Gerrera. Who was also
yes. Well. I know what we're talking about, yeah.
I actually forgot the name of the planet in Rogue One where the Empire has a base set up.
Okay, so we were mistaken there. Star Wars fans are punching air listening to this.
Yeah, it was more jungle and ocean, like it was more tropical.
Yeah, I know. Okay, yeah, I know what you're talking about. I can't remember what it was called, but yeah, okay. So I knew Jeddah was in Rogue One. It's Saw, and I think they did a really good job of recreating as well. Same thing with Coruscant. I feel like they did a really good job of recreating Coruscant. We never really see Coruscant in the Empire times. It's not something that we've seen a lot of in any of the source material. So I like that as well. Before we dive into some of the big story beats, obviously, again, spoiler alert. If you want to play this game without having everything spoiled for you, go play it. Don't listen to this now because obviously we're going to go in depth with some major story beats. So you've been warned. So with that being said, fellas, From the jump, I mentioned this game kind of having that Last of Us Part 2 feel compared to Last of Us Part 1, this to Fallen Order.
Yeah.
You've got this whole new crew early on, and one thing that I think would have helped this game, I think if we had seen the last mission that broke up or kind of sent everybody in their own direction when you talk about Grease, Seer, and Marin, if we had seen kind of how that happened, how they all kind of ended up splitting off, like what the last mission they all ran together was before that, I feel like it would have helped this story a little bit. And then you could have a time jump and go to Coruscant from there and, be fine. Cal has this whole new team that outside of one character in Boda Kuna, they all just get slaughtered by the Empire.
Yeah.
Like in this mission on Coruscant, they are all just slaughtered by the Empire. Like you meet all these characters, you see that Cal's clearly got a relationship with all of them, and you're thinking, okay, there's some characters I might see, and then they pull a real Invincible on you of just blasting all of them out of nowhere. Like this game gets off to a really dark start, Kyle.
Yeah, it does. I'm going to be honest, I was not expecting it because I thought what was going to happen is we was going to be running with this new crew, which I thought was a little bit weird at first, but I was like, oh, okay, I'll accept it. And then they just start killing them off one by one, and I think that, this game really focused a lot on loss, this game really broke Cal. I think it beat him down. The first game was a lot more uplifting. It was about him really becoming a Jedi and meeting all these new friends. And this game, holy shit, man! Like you said, from the get go, they really just start tearing into you, and from there you go to meet Grease, who obviously you haven't seen in a while, and I have to say that this next part where you are supposed to go save this robot, and then she tells you about, her master that you need to go save, Dagon Gera. This next part
Yeah,
is one of the craziest fucking parts, I think, in the entire game.
yeah. I think that the entirety of that base that you have to go into, the array, the forest array that you go into on Kobo, uh, level design in this game was so good. And I think that the forest array is a great, great example here because
Yeah.
you ultimately, you make it through this forest array, this base. You have to deal with these Kobo particles that kill you if you stand in them for too long. And after you get there, you find a Jedi in a Bacta tank, and his name is Dagon Gera. And you were sent there by this droid Z, that her master was Santari Kree, who was another Jedi, who was friends with Dagon Gera, kind of romantically involved, but it's kind of hinted at that, they were kind of a thing, kind of not really. Obviously, the rule with Jedi has always been that Jedi do not show emotion, and ultimately, the existence of a Jedi is very, very lonely. You're not supposed to marry as a Jedi. So, and we'll get into that, hint, hint, here in a bit, obviously, with a certain plot line that we all love.
Yeah.
But you find him and you hear about this place called Tanalore that is supposedly so far in the outer rim, that the Empire has no presence there and has no idea of its existence. So Dagon Gera essentially turns evil after he gets out. You fight him. By the way, he's got one arm, and somehow with his little arm stump, he can still use the Force. Not really sure how the fuck that
Yeah,
works.
that was so wild how he was
Yeah.
throwing his
Yeah.
lightsaber at you like that. But that part when he turned evil, though,
Yes.
when he takes the kyber, the
Yeah.
crystal out, and he turns it red right in front of you, I was like, oh shit, because I thought we were about to have a new friend, and oh
Yeah.
man, we were not. That was such a cool scene, though. I think that's really where, the performance of the PS5, because for some reason, some of these cutscenes like that one were running really well, and it just showed how beautiful this machine can make, these games. I think
Absolutely.
that scene, one of my favorites, I think, in all of Star Wars games.
Yeah, it gave me chills when you saw him change the color of the kyber crystal from yellow
Yeah.
to red, and then the big chorus kicks in when his lightsaber lights
Right.
up. Like
Oh, yeah.
it's chills, man. It's similar to in Fallen Order when Darth Vader kills Trilla at the very end. The way the chorus kicks in after he slashes her down just gives you chills a
Dude.
little bit.
It's a moment.
Um,
It's a moment.
it's a moment that you're like you're playing through it and you're like, I'm gonna remember that. I'm gonna
Oh, yeah.
remember this moment. You fast forward a little bit, you end up you figure out that ultimately to find the way to Tanalorr, you need a little bit of help. So you go to Jeddah, where Seer is, and Seer is there with a couple friends of ours. One old one that we all know and all love that we'll talk about in a minute, but another character that I don't think any of us expected to see in this game because I think we all just assumed he was dead, and that's Eno Cordova. He
Yep,
Yeah.
walks
same.
out. BD starts going crazy when he sees kind of this figure step out into the light. We don't know who it is yet, and then it pans up and it's Eno Cordova, and it's just a really cool moment because again, I don't think any of us thought that he was alive still. So it's this really cool moment where you meet this guy that you only saw holograms of the entire first game. So you find out that obviously he and Seer have been putting together a Jedi archive. Before you get there, you run into another old friend, and I'm just gonna say this is my opinion. If you boys share this opinion, I'm glad that we can agree. If y'all do, if y'all don't, that's fine. I don't think there's any question. I think that Marin absolutely steals this game.
She
I
does.
think that Tina Evlev does an incredible job voicing her, and I think that the writing for her was. I think she steals this game right from Cameron Monaghan does a great job in this game, but Marin absolutely a scene stealer in this. You run into her again, Matt, and she's just somehow even more badass than she was in the first game.
Yep. I want to say the thing that I noticed first was her new design in this game was incredible. Like the glow up out of all the characters in this game. I love the how we're introduced to her in Jeddah. Like we're looking for Seer here, but we get to run into her, and this is also one thing that I don't think we talked about at the combat was the introduction of partner like the AI partner attacks.
Yes.
I thought hers was really cool, where she basically can tie down an enemy with like these green ropes or whatever,
Yeah,
and
her magic, her Night Sister magic, yeah.
yep, and she, oh my god, Night Sisters are just such a cool concept to me. Like it was so incredible when I first found out about them way back during the Clone Wars, and you found out that they're basically the female equivalent of what Darth Maul is on Dathomir.
Yeah.
Um, but what I really like the direction that they took her character in is the fact that we find out that everybody got separated because they have different paths that they want to go on. And basically we find out with Marin is that, she is just trying to figure out her place. And, so when she goes off on her own path, and, at the same time, she's also assisting, Seer and locating, potential Jedis and all that. Now, she steals this show, and we're going to talk about this part because I know
Yes.
we have really been wanting to talk about this part, is when you are searching for the hidden path and where they are hidden. That's funny. We get introduced to one of my favorite abilities and one of those parts that in this game I just wish that I could go back to it without having to go through the rest of it. Just instantly go this part is when the driller, like the Empire, has located where the hidden path is, and there's this machine, and it's called the driller. Now, for Star Wars fans, you recognize these machines in the Clone Wars as what the Empire, or as what the what is it?
The Republic.
No. It's a droid, the Trade Federation, and all that.
Yeah,
that side of things. Those drillers are used to attack Kimono. Yeah, something like that. It's where the clones were created. Kimono. I'm just gonna leave it there.
It's Kimono. You're Kimono. That's right.
But we get introduced to this teleportation ability. But during the whole section, it just felt like one giant roller coaster where you are using all Cal's special abilities, you are flipping, you are wall running, you are
mid-air dashing,
you are swinging around, and you are basically going through these portals that Marin is creating to get you around the machine. And my God, it doesn't outstay its welcome. I feel like it's the perfect length of time for this whole sequence, and just man, that was just incredible. Like they really outdid themselves with every action scene, set piece. Even for me personally, the original introduction of Darth Vader, in Fallen Order, like this scene, like this whole section of the game will never be something I'll forget.
Yeah, I've got a good comparison for that scene because it felt the same. Think about like back in Ratchet and Clank Rift Apart and the sequence where you're on Molotov and you're with Rivet and Ratchet or Rivet and Clank, and you're meeting the Junker or whatever his name is, that that the being that helps fix the crystal that you need, the Blizar crystal. And he's you're grinding all those rails, he's destroying everything around you. It's kind of like that. It's that same level of chaos just happening around you, but it's one of the coolest action sequences in the entire game. And again, like it's just one of those standout moments where you play through it and you're like, I wish there was chapter select. I wish I could go back and do this again and again. It's so much fun.
Yeah.
And in all of this, it's a great segue for us to finally get something we've been hinting at the entire time. Let's talk about the storyline between Cal and Merrin, because it's hinted at very, very lightly in Fallen Order that there's something there. There is very much some kind of chemistry there because they both come from similar backgrounds. They're both, pardon the pun with the game name, they're both survivors. They're the last of their kind. She's the last Night Sister. Cal is believed to be the last Jedi. I mean, obviously, we know how this game goes, and we'll get to that soon. But
Triggered the Last Jedi.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
The Last Jedi. I wouldn't even try for that. It's funny. But it's hinted at that there's very much some chemistry there between the two of them, and then it's hinted at very on that again. There's some feelings there between the two of them, and then finally it's confirmed. And right before the portal section, Merrin takes this opportunity to kiss him.
Yeah.
And in that moment, I think we all celebrated because we all kind of saw that it was hinted at, and the game finally went for it. The game finally goes for it later in the game when it finally puts them together. And I have to say, it's incredible to me that we have finally, it took 2 movie trilogies, multiple spin-off shows. This is the best romance plotline that has been written in Star Wars since the original trilogy. And I'm not so sure that this didn't top that. I am not sure that this did not top the original trilogy with Han and Leia. I am not sure that. I think there's a very real chance that it topped it. And I want to say out there, I want to get this from you two. Do either one of you feel like it was forced? Because I didn't feel like it was forced at all, and I think there are some stupid ass motherfuckers on Twitter that think it was, and I think they're wrong.
No, it was definitely not forced because they had build up in the original game. Not so much on the romantic side.
Disagree with me there when I just said that aggressively. To be fair,
not so much on the romantic side. In Fallen Order, but like we also don't know what happened after Fallen Order because they still were on adventures and we still get little flashbacks. So we weren't exactly there to see the more how much closer that they got. But no, I don't feel like it was forced at all. It felt very natural. I mean, it wasn't nearly as forced as a 10-year-old and a 16-year-old in Phantom Menace, or I think she was 14. She was something like that. But Padme and Anakin still awkward to this day with the age difference. Let's get that through.
Yeah, very awkward.
It felt, like I said, it felt very natural. And on top of that, man, how can you not ship them? Like, how?
Yeah, like, I don't know how you couldn't.
I liked how Cal was like holding back because he still stays true to the Jedi, I guess the Jedi law or the way that they,
the Jedi order,
Jedi can't have romantic relationships, and he still kind of holds on to that. But then it's like later on in the game, he's like, the order's gone. These
he finally accepts it. Yeah,
pretty much. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I love that. I love that he kind of finally shed that belief. He said the order's gone. We need to move on, and he admitted he finally knew what he wanted, and he wanted to be with her. So, and I love that. And Kyle, we've seen the ending, so we kind of know who's around at the very end, and there obviously is a character that joins their crew at the very end. I think there's a lot of endless potential with that. I don't want to say names here because I don't want to spoil it for Matt. I think there's a lot of potential with how this game ends to really take that relationship somewhere interesting. I think there is.
Very true, very true. I definitely think that's what they're setting up for. I gotta say that the way that they showed Cal's struggle, like Matt said, with coming to terms that the Jedi are gone. The Order, it's over.
The ways of old. Yeah.
It's time to set your own path. And we we've seen what happens before when a Jedi falls for a woman. And he starts embracing the dark side as Cal's done, and I think that there is a lot of really crazy potential for the third game for them to really dive into that because I mean it's there is a reason why the Jedi never wanted to have relationships. While I personally disagree with it, Anakin was a very good example. I wonder if that's what they're, gonna be setting up with Cal. If they're setting up for him to, fully, or even if I don't think they would do this, but what if they ended up in the third game giving us a choice to choose to be good or evil, kind of like how they
Yeah.
did in, oh damn, what were those games? They were PS2, PS3, Star
Oh,
Wars
you're
games,
talking about
Force
the. I
Unleashed,
know what you're talking
Force
about.
Unleashed.
Oh,
Yeah,
oh,
dude.
Force
oh, I
Unleashed.
thought
There
you
you
were saying,
go.
Yep.
I thought you were gonna say Coach War or something like that.
No, no, like in Force Unleashed, because couldn't you choose to be good or evil? That would be a
Yeah,
very interesting
there was a
turn.
karma system. Yeah,
Yeah, that would be
Yeah.
very interesting. But I think that they're definitely they
I've
did.
said that. I think.
Mhm.
No, you're good. Go
Oh,
ahead.
I just say they didn't put in this whole him leaving the Jedi Order and embracing the darkness for no reason. I think that is set up for something we will see in the third game.
And I think, and I know Matt, you had something you wanted to add. I'll get to that in a second. I think that the belief with the Jedi Order has always been that love creates emotion. Emotion sometimes clouds judgment. I think that's always been the belief of the Jedi and that's ultimately what led to Anakin's turning. I mean, Anakin in the prequels ends up turning because of the fear of Padme dying in childbirth.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
ultimately what leads to him to make his decision. And now, of course, as stupidly written as it is in the prequels, where it's and this episode's going to go into a completely different discussion here. It's kind of funny. As stupidly written as it is, that Palpatine pretty much tells Anakin, it's a power to cheat death is something that no Jedi's ever done. But if we work together, essentially he tells him we can figure it out. And now of course it doesn't get figured out. Padme still dies, and it doesn't make it. And
Yeah.
the greatest villain of all time in Darth Vader is created.
Yeah.
I feel very confident saying that because Darth Vader is the greatest villain in all of entertainment. There's no arguing that. But I think that's always been the thing, and I think that sets up for some very interesting possibilities in a third game, which I think we're 100% getting. Because I think that there's still a lot, and that's the thing about the Star Wars universe. There's a lot of lore here. There's a lot of stuff that can be told. And the thing is, all three of us know exactly where this storyline, like we know where the universe is right now. And we know ultimately where it goes. We know that this series is not going to end with them toppling the Empire. We know it's not going to end that way. So it's very interesting to see where this goes from here. So Matt, you had something that you wanted to add.
Oh, actually, Rusty, you actually said I was going to say, because when we were talking about the relationship between Mirren and Cal and what it could potentially lead to, the fact that once a Jedi gives himself emotions towards another, it becomes so much easier for the dark side to take over. And it's like we talked about Palpatine giving Anakin visions. So yeah, no, you covered it.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure. Okay, fair enough. My bad.
Yeah,
Yeah,
so
you're good.
it was very interesting that Rusty talked about how Anakin turned to the dark side because of his fear. Because, like we said earlier on in this episode, this game starts with Cal losing his entire team, all but Bode.
Yeah.
This game puts you through the ringer, losing so many people. There's an entire section in the middle that we have yet to talk about, which was fucking awesome.
We're gonna get to it.
But it really puts you through the ringer with all of this loss, and at the end, Cal says that he's afraid. of what's coming next. And shortly after the game ends, but it just clicked with me that Anakin turned to the dark side because he's afraid, and then that line at the end of the game where Cal says he's afraid. Dude, they could really be building up for a not happy ending.
Oh, I think we are careening towards a third game that is going to be an emotional roller coaster. In fact, and I want to say this now, this is an official prediction from me on the third game. I think the third game, and it will kill me internally if it does this. I think the third game, I think Cal is going to kill Marin in a fit of rage on accident. I think he's going to have. I think he's going to give into the dark side just long enough to kill her.
Yeah.
And it would. That would be, and obviously, I hope it doesn't happen. I would prefer this story have a happier ending for the two of them because I love both characters. I'd prefer it have a happier ending, but I genuinely think that's the path that we are going down. I think that's the path that we are going to go down, is that he's going to give into the dark side just long enough to kill her, and then from there, who knows? So back kind of the story, a lot of things end up happening. You end up finding essentially the map to get to Tanalorr, and you take it to Eno Cordova on Jeddah to fix it because it's been damaged. And this game almost does the Voss from Far Cry 3 thing, where in one of the coolest levels in this game's version, essentially of Sky City, essentially, I can't think of the name of this Cloud City or whatever it is, from Empire Strikes Back. Essentially, that version of this version of that. You kill Dagan Gera after giving into a little bit of the dark side as Cal. You essentially use Dagan Gera's spear against him, which is something that the Jedi were not taught to do. You and Bode end up defeating Dagan Gera, and all feels well, and you feel like you're about to get a new home, and then right as the map is repaired, Bode betrays you. And if you find out that not only is he an Imperial spy, this was the reveal that, have my jaw on the floor, you find out that Bode was actually a Jedi. And it is such a well done reveal as you go after him a little bit and he force pushes you back and you see the shock on Cal's face that this whole time he's been with another Jedi. And the moment that Bode whips out the red lightsaber, whew, another moment in this game, fellas, that I'll let you both talk about it. Kyle, you can go first. Another moment that just is unforgettable in this game.
Yeah, when Bode used the Force on you and pushed you back, what a jaw-dropping moment. I had suspicion early on that Bode was going to betray you, and they tagged me along with him just long enough for me to drop my guard and say, Rusty, I don't think he is going to betray me. And 1 hour later, he whips out a red lightsaber.
Yeah.
Wow. Well, I mean, damn, man, because from early on, I was like, man, I don't know. I have a bad feeling about this guy. And, it wasn't until he was trapped on the other side of that barrier when you were inside that base. And, he had to shoot the two droids and you guys got separated. Because I thought at that point, something was going to happen. And then, I was like, okay, well, maybe, because now he's really in danger. Because, it's just him off fighting the Empire. I was like, maybe he's not going to betray me. Man, what an insane scene for them to, go through. And the whole fight was so fucking cool. Oh, man, I got to give him props. The boss fights in this game were way stepped up from the first game. And not to mention, there were also a lot more.
The first game, the real standout boss fight in that one, outside of the final fight with Trilla, really is just the fight with Terran Malicos. He's really the only standout boss fight, in my opinion. Well, the one that Gargara or whatever it is, or Gargora, like that one on Kashyyyk is also a really, really good boss fight as well. Matt, tell me, man, what was kind of your reaction initially? We'll get into what kind of happens after you deal with Bode here in a second, because, oh boy, like, this is where the real heavy hitters start coming in. Hint, hint, as far as who we see from here on out. What was kind of your reaction to Bode betraying you?
Man, I'm gonna say this. During that fight with Dagan, the one that's you kill him, I thought Dagan was gonna kill Bode at that part. Like, I'm kind of confused as to why he didn't, because did anyone not understand that? Like, why didn't he kill him? He had every
I took
he had
it as
every yeah, I
my
was gonna
bad.
say no,
Me
go ahead.
personally, I took it as Dagan Gera was that arrogant
Yeah,
that he more or less just assumed that Bode would stay down.
yeah,
I think that it could have been better explained. Like, I think if they had like given you a collectible that said, well, Bode's actually been working with Dagan Gera as well. If they had done that,
yeah,
it'd been like,
yeah.
okay, that explains why he didn't kill him. Like maybe he expected him to turn on Cal mid-fight, and maybe that's how it happened. Um,
Makes sense.
but I chalk a lot of it up to Dagan Gera, who was very arrogant. Which, by the way, I want to say, I don't think there's a character in this game that's poorly written.
Yeah,
I think every major character in this game has really good moments. I thought Dagan Gera was a good villain, and it's unfortunate that he was more of a red herring in this one to
yeah,
Bode, um, because Bode really is only the main villain of this game for about 4 hours. He's not. It's about a 25-hour game, 25 to 30-hour game if if you play on Jedi Knight difficulty, depending
yeah,
on obviously your skill set and how much exploring you do. Um, Bode is not a villain for very long in this game, and considering Kyle and I know how the game ends, it's a little frustrating that Dagan Gera was almost kind of just red herringed a little bit into Bode being the villain for only about 4 hours. Because, spoiler alert, not exactly sure that we're going to see Bode Akuna in the third game. So, yeah, not
but
exactly sure we're going to see him. But go ahead and continue, Matt.
so to be honest, what I think why this twist was so pulled off is the fact that Bode really is not a villain. He is.
No,
There's a line that he said where he's like, I'm not a monster. I'm a father." And we, as we're pursuing Bode, and we locate him in his hideout, on an Empire base.
yeah,
I thought
Nova
that that
Garen,
was a
yeah.
really, I thought that that was a really cool kind of like the fact that this twist didn't happen just to be a twist, just to shock us. There was actual, merit behind it and why he was working with the Empire. So, because we see his daughter Kata, and honestly, it makes sense. Bo, he tells us how he lost his wife and Kata's mother, and that he had a kind of a contract thing with or a partnership with this member of the Empire. I think his name was Davik or something like that.
I think it was Denvik. I think
Davik,
it
yeah,
wasn't an Inquisitor, but it was Denvik. Yeah.
yeah. So he was keeping them in hidden because he's a Jedi. He's being hunted. Um, so I think the fact that there's just an emotional reasoning as to why he did what he did is why the twist works so well. Because if there's one thing I can't stand, it's when someone does something or makes a twist, betrayal, just because we just want to shock the players. But
Yeah, we just want to subvert expectations, and I think that this
exactly,
one there was meaning behind what Bo
exactly,
did, and I have to
yeah,
say, Bo Akuna, really good character. I
yeah,
really enjoyed his presence in this game. Disappointed that we're probably not going to see any more of him. Hint, hint, as far as how the game ends. But I think that it's pretty easy to figure out. I mean, if you know at this point about Bo's betrayal, you can safely figure out how the game ends from there. Um, I think that his inclusion in this game, again, he's a very complex character. It just goes to show. I mean, everybody is a villain to somebody in this universe. Everybody is a villain to somebody, and ultimately, Bode isn't doing what he's doing for hateful reasons. He did what he did because ultimately he just wanted to protect his daughter, and he worried that taking the hidden path and taking all of the archives, taking all of that to Tanalorr might risk potentially revealing that location to the Empire. He worried about that, and it's very clear the day before his betrayal in the game, it's very clear that that bothers him. It's
yep,
very clear that he doesn't want to just go to Tanalorr with everybody right away. He wants to scope it out to make sure it's safe first. And obviously, when that doesn't happen, when Cal doesn't agree to that, that's when the betrayal happens. So after the betrayal happens, and you have your little dust up, your little boss fight with him, and Cal ultimately is knocked unconscious, way away from the Hidden Path base, the Anchorite base.
ooh,
This is one of my favorite parts of the game. You take control of Seer, and
yes,
that is
Yes.
so cool because she plays different from Cal. She's a completely different kind of Jedi. She's more of a master, and she's got different abilities. Doesn't have any skill tree or anything, but has a different like special ability, a special ultimate ability that's really cool, to where she can essentially block everything in front of her and then shoot it out and defeat every enemy in front of her. That's really cool. And then the part of the game that had me screaming the most, when you go to get the archives, you give it to BD1, and you kind of feel this little like kind of freeze, this little freeze, and this like this disturbance in the force almost. And she tells BD1 to get back to the ship, and who opens the door to the archives? None other than fucking Darth Vader himself.
Yep.
And Matt, this boss fight
So,
was incredible. I loved every second of this boss fight.
so I was in a party with Rusty, and he's basically just kind of like, okay, something's gonna happen. I'm not gonna tell you what it is, but I want to hear your reaction. And when I see the look on Sears' face that she knows that she's basically being watched or whatever, I was literally like, "Oh Lord, he coming!" because I just felt it. I just felt it. And then yep, there he is. And then the freaking amazing Imperial March starts playing Darth Vader's theme, and it is just an incredible fight where you honestly feel like that you are not. I don't even feel like you're underpowered. Seer really is a master. Like she held her own. Like you know, Vader's at the top. Vader's like almost impossible to kill because he's completely driven by emotions, by anger, by sadness, which
By rage,
exactly,
yes.
which is exactly what the dark side of the Force feeds off on, and he's at the peak. So the fact that Seer was able to hold her own for as long as she did really shows that she's no chump. And kind of getting into it, one thing I really did like about this is how at the end of the first, or around the end of the first game, where you encounter Vader for the first time, he fights Trilla, who was Seer's Padawan. So it's basically Darth Vader coming to finish what he started, and I feel like it ties it all together really well.
I agree. And Kyle, obviously, the ending of this fight, yeah, as one could assume, ends with Seer's death. And dude, you want to talk about a heavy shot to the gut
Yeah.
as a player?
Oh yeah.
Man, like this one hurt, and I remember kind of saying that. First of all, Deborah Wilson, incredible as Seer through two
Yes.
games. Awesome job portraying her. Really, really, and excited to see how she's used potentially as a Force Ghost moving forward. And I hope that she is used as that.
Same.
Yeah.
Because Deborah Wilson's an awesome voice actress, and I really hope that she's not completely done here. Man, just an absolute gut punch. And of course, we know what this leads to for Cal when he finds her. We know what he starts to do the moment Seer is killed.
Yeah, that ending where, she lunges at Darth Vader and it looks like at first she stabbed him, but then you look and it's right underneath his
Yeah.
armpit, and in actuality he stabbed her. That shit was fucking brutal. But then Cal comes running up and he finds her and he embraces the dark side completely, and you get this new ability where you can do just that, embrace the dark side, and you go into a fit of rage and you just start swinging your saber, but it's like a one-hit kill on everybody. It's insane. That was one of again another one of the biggest turning moments for me was when they essentially showed that Cal is not only in tune with the good side of the Force, he's also in tune with the dark side. And man, Seer dying right after Eno Cordova as well, especially because, like you said earlier, I didn't think that he was still alive. In Fallen Order, I thought that he was dead. So when we saw him, I was like, holy shit, that's crazy, he's alive. And they killed him, and then, soon thereafter, they kill Seer. Man, that shit was rough. But what a great fight. I mean, that whole scene, that whole section, playing as Seer, fighting all of the stormtroopers, leading all the way up to the end with Darth Vader. I think it was perfect.
And for me, this leads to one of my favorite lines in the game, one of the most memorable lines in the game when, we haven't talked a lot about Grease. And Grease, he's in this game quite a bit. Takes a little bit more of a back seat in this game compared to in Fallen Order. Fallen Order, he's a lot more, he's around a whole lot more in that game, and he's obviously a lot more he's not as nice in that game as he is in this one. He's definitely softened up quite a bit in this one after years of having a couple years of peace of running the saloon on Kobo. But he has an incredible line after you reunite with BD Marin and him back on the Mantis, and it's the line that goes, we all know it's a rigged game, but we choose how to play. And it's that's one of those where like that's up there with death can have me when it earns me from God of War Ragnarok. It's like God, these writers were fucking cooking.
Yeah,
these writers were cooking. Like, and it's just again like this is where you start to see Cal embrace more of the dark side because you get to Nova Garen, and after finding where Bode stays, you find Kata, and he ends up using you as a distraction. They escape, and you find Denvik again after you've reunited with Marin, and she's kind of helped you finish off all the troopers that are around you. And Cal starts to choke him, and it's just, and this is again one of those scenes where Marin just steals it, where she talks about how she understands that he's in pain, but this is not who he is, and that the Empire's taken enough from them, and that she's not going to let them take him as well. Just a scene where she absolutely steals it, kind of brings him back to reality a little bit. Just everything that happens from this point in the story on is just, it's heavy hit after heavy hit. This story, if you can get into it after the first 3 hours, if you give it that time to get going, this game is every bit the sequel that Fallen Order deserved. It is such a phenomenal sequel. So much so that I will go on record and say, if they fix the performance of this game, and I know that Tears of the Kingdom just came out, and I love that game, what I've played so far, I'm not discrediting it. I want to beat it before I say anything else about it. They fix the performance of this game. This is my early game of the year pick. Very, very early. There's a lot of games still coming out. A lot of games still coming out that are going to be great. This is my game of the year frontrunner for right now if they fix the performance. Because if they fix the performance, this is a 10 out of 10 game.
Yeah.
Because it is really... we haven't even gotten into all the side stuff. There's so much cool collectible as far as filling the fish tank at the saloon, the plants, the garden on top of it. There's like everything. Finding all the clothing and armor sets is cool.
And new
game plus. New characters like you meet.
Saloon.
Yeah.
I don't know if you guys know this, and I stumbled upon this. Do you guys know what happens after you find and you do all the bounties?
No.
Do you want me to tell you?
Yes.
That's fine.
You have a run-in with none other than Boba Fett.
Holy
shit! Okay.
Voiced by the man himself, Tamura Morrison.
Someone gave me the memory eraser for Men in Black. Oh my god.
It is so cool. You don't fight him.
Yeah.
But it's a side story kind of thing, and I'm not going to spoil the plot line. But I saw that, and I was like, I have to bring this up because that is so cool to see another main character from the actual, like, from the lore and the mythology of Star Wars. To see Boba Fett in this game, it's just so cool. It's just such a really cool moment. And again, I loved this game. I plan on platinuming this game. I know Kyle plans on it. Matt, I don't know about you. I don't know if you plan on it. You do as well. That's cool. We'll all help each other with it. I genuinely love this game, and I can't wait for the third one. I think that Respawn is really going to do a good job with this trilogy, and I'm really looking forward to seeing just how far they go. If there's one thing I would love to see in the third game, I would love to see an M rating. I would love to see a rated M version of this game, because rated T is fine, and it's been fine, but I think to tell the dark story that they're kind of hinting at, they really need no restrictions. They need to be able to do whatever they need to do here. So, fellas, it's been a good episode, been a long episode. I'm going to give you both a chance here. Any closing thoughts, anything that you haven't had a chance to say yet? Matt, we'll start with you. Any closing remarks on Star Wars Jedi Survivor?
So maybe not so much on the game, but I would honestly love to see
a TV show.
A TV show, maybe not just entirely based off of the game, but I want to see Cal Kestis introduced into live action. Like,
yes,
I want to see all these characters in some way, because I feel like Cal has definitely cemented himself as a icon in the Star Wars universe.
Cameron Monaghan's portrayed him really well. I
Yeah,
will
agreed.
agree with that. As much as I loved Marin in this game and thought she was amazing and my favorite character by far, Cameron Monaghan's absolutely nailed this role in 2 games. Kyle, what about you?
Yeah, I want to see an M rating for the third game. I think that one thing that I really wanted from Fallen Order was it to be a little bit more realistic when it came to the combat. Seeing human dismemberment was cool because I was like,
Yes.
I'm attacking people with a lightsaber. I should not just be marking them up. I hate, I didn't really like that about Fallen Order. So to see that I was actually able to, you know, cut pieces off of these enemies, I felt like there was a lot more, destructibility when it came to the world. There was a lot more shit that I could destroy. It felt a lot more real, and I think that they should take it all the way for the third game. Give us the M rating. You don't need to use that vulgar of language. It doesn't need to have that much adult content. But Star Wars has never been shy from doing things like cutting limbs off, legs, arms, decapitations. You
Or
know,
Dooku.
I mean, we've seen, and I think a PG-13 rating works. It sells. So I think an M rating where it's mainly just so the combat is that realistic. I would love to see that.
Yeah, I just want to reiterate, massive fan of this game. Massive fan of it. It got off to a bit of a rough start, but man, once this game picked up and got going, I absolutely loved it. I know the two of you did as well. So it's been a long episode, fellas. Pretty damn long. I haven't had Kyle text me how long the episode is, so I'm just gonna let him tell me after we get off here as well. But that is a good place to wrap up. So that is going to do it for this episode of Side Mission. Be sure to check us out on Twitter at Side Mission Pod. Follow us on Facebook as well at Side Mission Podcast. For the boys, for Matt, for Kyle, I'm Rusty. Thanks for listening.